I'm 35 years old, and my name is Thomas. I currently work for a corporation, a nearby corporation. When I first wanted to go to an industrial college, my parents wouldn't help with the cost of tuition. In order to pay for education, I worked part-time jobs whenever I could and saved money. I eventually succeeded in getting the job I desired. Many of my peers were always having fun and making a lot of noise, and they received financial support from their parents. They must not have ever had to balance working a part-time job and studying for examinations or worry about money. That's what I recall thinking while I saw them. They were nice guys, but all they talked about was females, drinking, darts, and the pretty girls they worked with part-time. I had to work constantly because my meager high school funds were insufficient at the time. Our themes, morals, and financial circumstances differed. Since I was constantly worn out from job and school, I was unable to actually get to know them. But I was in no position to whine about my circumstances. I put in as much effort as I could because I knew I couldn't depend on my parents. My sister and I were just half-siblings, and both of our parents had remarried. Jenna, my sister, was 12 years my junior. She was charming and gorgeous and kind of looked like my stepmother. I loved her, but I didn't feel at home since I felt like I was only half of the family. The awkwardness with my stepmother was lessened, though, because it seemed that my parents would rather live as a couple. We hardly ever saw them because they were usually going out together and returning home late. Even though our parents took care of our fundamental requirements, we didn't communicate much. Perhaps that's why Jenna and I started to become reticent and quiet. As Jenna became older, she spent more time in her room and less time chatting to me. She stopped smiling at home, and although I didn't know her at school, I began to worry about her. I made a concerted effort to converse with her. She was irritated at first, but I persisted. I engaged them in conversation by saying basic things like dinner's ready or welcome back, discussing TV shows and insignificant events that happened during the day. I took care to avoid asking too personal or intrusive questions about things like how school was doing. This was due to the fact that those were questions that some people didn't want asked, particularly those who don't have strong friendships. I think Jenna found me annoying, but at least I wasn't someone she wanted to stay away from entirely. She eventually smiled and began to converse with me. I loved Jenna, but I didn't like our parents. I was glad to see her again. When Jenna turned 12, I was hired. I didn't particularly like my parents, but I could have moved out of the house and lived elsewhere if I had truly wanted to. But I believed that leaving Jenna, who was already going through a challenging adolescence, alone with our uncaring parents, wouldn't be healthy for her mental health. Our parents didn't want to spend any money on us. They were just interested in their personal happiness. We were able to live reasonably comfortably during the low-cost years of elementary and middle school. But when I needed money for activities and tuition in high school, they became more and more antagonistic. They were constantly unhappy, and their mood only grew worse when money was brought up. They would reluctantly hand me the money, but they would always make a sincere face of displeasure and whine about how much it cost. My folks were avid shoppers. Mom almost lived for buying clothes, makeup, and hobbies because she had a sweet taste. Dad liked to party and drink a lot, so he would frequently pass out whenever she went out. Their habits combined with Dad's meager income meant there was never any money left over for us to do our own thing. I asked my high school homeroom teacher and advisor for permission to work part-time on weekends and holidays while I was having a dilemma regarding my future. Usually, they would have advised me to concentrate on my studies and extracurricular activities, but after we had a discussion, it was evident that my parents didn't want to cover anything except tuition and the necessities of life. We'll cover the children's essential living expenses, but we don't see the need for anything more. My father answered without hesitation. They should take care of their own costs now that they are older kids. My professors saw the look on my father's face and knew. The teachers said nothing for a time after my father left the room, then finally said, "Do your best. I began working at a fast food restaurant in the area. It was really taxing to juggle employment and school obligations. Since attending a private school was out of the question, I had to focus on my studies in addition to keeping up my connections. Looking back, I think that being too busy and always tired to think about my shortcomings or lack of friends ended up being a blessing in disguise. I lived fairly well with Jenna in a house with hardly any grown-ups, despite the fact that I was always exhausted. Jenna abruptly told me she had a boyfriend on her 23rd birthday. Jenna had always been quiet and distant, so I was taken aback. She'd apparently been approached by a businessman who frequented her place of employment. It made logical, as Jenna was clearly gorgeous. I felt conflicted, but Jenna remarked, "Thomas, I detest this house. Because you were here, I've been able to get through it thus far, but now I can't get rid of the sensation that I shouldn't return." He asked me to marry him, even though I've only known him for a short while. He knew my circumstances, which is why I know he said it so swiftly. Even though Joshua and I have only been dating for 3 months, I want to marry him. I nearly lost my breath when I realized how short Jenna's relationship with her boyfriend, who we haven't seen yet, was. I might sympathize with her, but she would face difficulties in the road if she marries an unproven man. I said, "Let me meet him first, and then we can decide if you can marry him." Reluctantly, Jenna accepted. She answered, "Well, I'll introduce him to you anyhow." At just 23, Jenna had no prior romantic or professional experience and was attempting to flee with a man she had met 3 months prior. It's dangerous to consider marrying someone before getting to know his character, and Jenna's naivete is likely the reason for this. I do have some experience, albeit not a lot of it. Friends of mine have told me stories of their negative interactions with obnoxious individuals. That's why I had a slight feeling of discomfort about Jenna being married to someone she barely knew. To my dismay, Jenna appeared to be happier than before. She had either smiled or remained expressionless when speaking with me up until this point. But today she appears vibrant and has a serene expression that exudes a pink or light orange glow. I felt a little relieved to see her in that light. He has to be taking good care of Jenna. Anticipating the day I would meet him, I reasoned that if that were the case, everything should be all right. However, my optimism was going to be dashed. Her lover had picked a classy restaurant where they would meet. Jenna was adamant about getting married and disregarded my advice, stating, "Oh, by the way, the meeting is a marriage introduction. Please take care of us as our parents will be there," his parents. As she stated this, she grinned. I was beginning to think that nothing I said would matter when I saw Jenna grin. I was all but done. No, but I would have to strongly object if he turned out to be a bad character. The only one who can keep Jenna safe is me. After Jenna graduated from high school, our parents, who had always been unwilling to raise us, had ceased visiting. My suspicions led me to look through our family registry. Though thankfully our family relationships remained intact, our parents completely stopped visiting. They'd pretty well abandoned us, because Jenna was practically an adult now. Jenna and I were the only ones living together after that. We were no longer a family, even if we were linked by blood. Jenna just appeared resigned upon learning that our parents had moved out and went straight to work hunting for a high-paying part-time job. She ended up working night shifts at a family restaurant while attending college after I insisted she not sell herself short. She was too weak to work as much as she would have liked, so I used my wages to pay for part of our living expenses while she paid for her living expenses and tuition. Later, after her job hunt had not gone smoothly, Jenna made the decision to work her part-time job full-time. She seemed to enjoy it, even if the work atmosphere was challenging compared to an office job where she would have to sit at a desk. Although I was pleased with Jenna's development, I couldn't let some random stranger to take her away. She had grown to regard me as a parent. Jenna and I worked hard for the following 3 days, and before we knew it, the day that had been promised had come. Jenna made fun of my clumsiness in a suit when I showed up to the restaurant 50 minutes early because I was so scared. but her smile seems forced. She had to have been anxious as well. Her lover came from an upscale background. His parents were head nurses at a county hospital and influential figures at an auto parts business. Her lover, too, had secured employment at a prominent corporation in the city. Jenna was quite talkative and obviously frightened. I became even more anxious seeing her like that, and we both tried to talk awkwardly. Her boyfriend and his parents showed up just on schedule. Joshua was his name. He had a sleek, contemporary haircut that gave him the appearance of being extremely well-liked by ladies. He was tall and lean. Certainly, the suit he was wearing was far more elegant and costly than mine. His parents were also dressed immaculately and had serious looks. His father looked hard and unyielding, making him seem distant. His mother gave me a mask-like, blank stare instead of a single grin. I smiled at them, a little nervous, and we all went into the restaurant. His parents regarded me with stern gaze even after we sat down. But Joshua had lovely words to say. "It's good to meet you. I appreciate you being here today. My name is Joshua, and Jenna is my girlfriend. We're thinking about getting married." After I introduced myself, the mood softened. Jenna was obviously nervous because it was her first time meeting his parents. Michael, Joshua's father, then inquired, "What a gorgeous young lady. Your parents also have to be incredibly attractive. Why are you by yourself here today? Are your folks not coming?" Michael arched an eyebrow at me when I stated, somewhat dishonestly, that my parents were too busy at work to visit their daughter frequently. "So you're saying they are so busy they can't even attend this important pre-wedding meeting for their daughter?" Michael asked. "Regardless of how busy they are at work, they ought to make time for this kind of event. How are they going to put work ahead of this? Which type of parents are you raising?" I could not think of anything to reply to what he had said. He was correct. It was peculiar that our parents were unable to attend such a significant occasion. I looked over at Jenna, thinking to myself that there was only so much I could hide. She appeared perplexed and speechless. Joshua attempted to fill in for us. "Well, her parents might not have been able to adjust their schedules. They hold significant positions and travel abroad frequently." Michael, however, inquired, "So will they attend the wedding?" Once more, we were unable to speak. Michael seemed to be picking up on something from our responses. Anger swiftly reddened his face as he asked, "What are you saying? Can't even your parents make it to the wedding? It's as if these parents don't exist." Jenna is reportedly covering her own living bills and education. Are her parents, who are said to be well educated, really not providing her with any money at all? That's one thing if their educational philosophy states that she should manage everything on her own after high school. However, typical parents will, if they are well off, at least cover their child's living expenses so the latter may concentrate on their college coursework. That kind of parental behavior is bad for a girl. We've finished our conversation. A girl with such parents is not needed in our home. It was true that our father treated us with such coldness that it felt as though he had abandoned us. But Jenna and I had put in a lot of effort to succeed on our own. Despite her social discomfort, Jenna has become more and more adept at connecting with others outside of our parents, and as a result, her social skills have improved. She is a decent and caring person as well. Even though some of her peers try to ignore them, Jenna is kind and treats them equally when they feel excluded. For example, she would always, and with a grin, invite the student who generally got left out before the teacher had to step in on field trips and group projects. That student was about to become a truant, but she was able to attend class every day because of Jenna's unceasing company and chats. Her teacher told me this, and it brought me to tears. Even though Jenna was frequently depressed at home, she had developed into such a kind girl. She was being ridiculed for circumstances beyond her control, nevertheless. I had to say something. "What are you saying, Michael? Although our parents may not always be involved, they did a good job raising us." Teachers have often complimented Jenna on her sensitivity and kindness. Please don't speak of Jenna that way just because our parents' approach is different from what you expect, I retorted. Oh, so your parents will be attending the wedding, right? Michael then asked. They won't miss the wedding, even if they are currently too busy to get together. I asked you about this earlier, and you didn't respond. Why is it the case? He smiled as though he was having fun. Josh responded, Well, you see, her parents are currently involved in a major project overseas and can't easily come back, so it might be difficult for them to attend the wedding. Michael appeared astonished. That is not appropriate. Parents ought to attend their daughter's wedding, despite their hectic schedules. Do you believe you can trick me? Is it true that your parents have given up on you? They have left you alone because of this. If that's not the case, allow me to have a video conversation with them right now. Following Joshua's example, Jenna remarked, Our parents are so busy that they hardly ever get time to talk to us. We are unsure of their availability. You're trying to keep us from speaking to your parents because you're not in touch with them. Michael shot back. You believe you can fool us, but we can see right through you. A person without biological parents is not welcome in our family. Am I mistaken? His eyes were penetrating as he looked at me. I knew there was nothing left to trick him with. In addition, I couldn't fathom keeping up a relationship with a family that was so horrible, and I couldn't let Jenna join it. Although our parents may not have been the finest, we are aware that many other children have experienced worse. It was difficult to work part-time and study, but I think I managed my duties far better than those easygoing college students. We took our lives very seriously. It was excessive to have our character evaluated according to how our parents treated us. Given their elevated social standing, Joshua's parents aspired to have the ideal daughter-in-law. His assessment of Jenna's appropriateness as a prospective daughter-in-law was based only on his suspicion that, based on their observations of her parents, she might be mentally ill. It doesn't follow that children are inherently faulty because of their parents. Naturally, having kids might provide unforeseen difficulties. Although having few resources can lead to unhappiness, Joshua's parents were unable to form an accurate judgment of Jenna in such a short period of time. It was time to discipline Michael for his criticism of my sister. Ever since I found out where he worked, I had been grinning to myself. Michael was about to rise, as though he wanted to declare that there was nothing more to talk about. I should have mentioned earlier that I'm the CEO of a corporation, I said to him. I think you work for EC Corp. Isn't that the struggling business that ours is going to buy out? We were just talking about layoffs. To thrive in a modern environment, one must continue to be inventive. You claim not to require my sister. Indeed, such a rigid thinker is not needed in our organization either. Michael hesitated for a moment, looking shocked at what I had said. However, his tone abruptly shifted, and he replied, What? I was ignorant. I apologize profusely for my hurtful statements. I implore you not to fire me. Yes, I was the CEO of a much bigger company, and I worked in the same industry as Michael. I had originally planned to pursue a technical career in mechanical engineering after graduating from college. I attracted the CEO's notice when I joined Company A and worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was appointed the CEO's replacement a few years ago because of his ongoing health problems and lack of children. Compared to Michael's company, Company A is a larger organization with roughly 4,000 workers. Michael's business is not small, but it was nothing in comparison to mine. Following that, I ignored Michael's repeated attempts to appease me, grabbed Jenna's hand, and said, Let's go. Having in-laws like that, no matter how wonderful they are, will only cause you pain. You deserve a better person, Jenna. And with that, I dragged her out of the shop. My heart hurt when I saw Jenna on the way home, walking slowly and wearing a dejected expression. Her entire life, she had put in a lot of work. She most certainly battled with life's challenges due of our parents. At last, Jenna had discovered someone she could genuinely rely on. I was aware that Joshua appeared to be a kind man, but dealing with his parents in trying circumstances would be too much to bear. This worry prevented me from being able to support their marriage. Jenna was happier than I had ever seen her. I was proud of myself for keeping her safe from those terrible in-laws, but I never wanted to see her like that. After becoming aware of the problems with his parents, Jenna questioned gently, "What should I do now?" Notwithstanding his parents, Joshua was a decent man. I couldn't discover the answer, but maybe she could be with him if she was ready for it. I was limited to saying, "I'm sorry." After Michael's business amalgamated with ours, I made the decision to terminate him. He ended up having to abruptly terminate his professional career since he was walking about thinking he was an elite. According to rumors, he had a poor reputation previously, therefore no other employer would hire him again, and he is currently jobless. There were rumors that he was self-destructive since his family was disintegrating and he had lost his job. Although I felt sad for Joshua, perhaps this would help him get away from his challenging parents. Despite her initial sadness, Jenna never placed the blame on me. But when she stopped communicating with me, I started to get depressed and wondered if she was still harboring any grudges. The marriage had been called off, albeit it was inevitable. Even without my intervention, I think it would have collapsed. It hurt so bad to see Jenna like that. However, Jenna abruptly declared one day, "Thomas, I don't think poorly of you. I apologize for continuously ignoring you and showing you my sad side. He's become just as essential to me as you have, even though I know you've always tried to protect me." I was so depressed over my lack of harmony with his folks. I felt obligated to apologize after observing that you have been experiencing sadness as well. I didn't have many close friends at school, and with parents like ours, I felt hopeless about having any fun in life, she said as I just stared at her. "Thomas, I chatted to you most of the time before I started school. That's why I had a lot of trouble in primary school. Everybody else smiled and conversed with such ease. I was at a loss for what to do because I had become so reliant on you. I was never satisfied with what I got from people. Thus, I was never able to have a meaningful conversation. I was getting more and more tired because I had nowhere to unwind, and my house wasn't a comfy location either. I became known as the silent youngster as my grades increased. I detested that, but I was stuck in that cycle and didn't know how to be more gregarious. Yet you made an effort to support me always. No matter how late you worked, you would always come chat to me, even when I was a high school student and would spend all of my time in my room on my phone. You persisted in wanting me, even after I pushed you away. I found it irritating at first. I felt it was more enjoyable to glance at my phone. You learned to cook by watching your mother prepare modest meals and cooking a lot of veggies for me every day out of concern for my health. You continued to try to chat to me, even when I had nothing to say and was just watching TV. As a result, I gradually picked up conversational skills from others. I was so tired at first that I simply wanted to eat by myself. But as time went on, I began to enjoy conversing with other people. I was overanalyzing it, I realized. I used to feel like I had to talk about what other people loved or about TV series. The topics you discussed were usually straightforward, and it made me feel better to talk about them. That's why I could persevere through tedious schoolwork. Thomas, I sincerely appreciate all that you have done for me. Jenna broke down in tears and expressed her regret for everything. I simply gave her a hug as I had no idea what to say. I could always talk to someone about insignificant topics, but in a situation like this, I was at a loss for words. I felt like a brotherly failure. I spoke to her over and over, "Jenna, you'll find someone better. Jenna, someone better." She answered, "Yes," while sobbing in my arms, without saying anything more. I continued to touch her back. Jenna seems to have healed after a while, at least superficially. She returned to work and appeared content once more. But maybe as a result of what transpired previously, she declines every offer made by clients. Perhaps she finds it difficult to let go of him. I tried everything to keep her safe, but all I could do this time was keep an eye on her. Joshua severed all contact with his parents a few months later, at which point he married Jenna. As much as I worry about certain things, I constantly tell Jenna to let me know if she needs anything. I want to help Jenna as much as I can in case something happens. Even though we are only half siblings, the lack of love from our parents has strengthened our relationship. At least now Jenna had someone who was willing to protect her even if it meant leaving his own parents behind. Joshua and Jenna beamed brighter than I had ever seen them smile as I complimented them. I'll finally be an uncle to a young girl next year. While working hard himself, Joshua has continued to be the helpful partner he appeared to be, lending a hand to Jenna. Every time we saw each other, Jenna's countenance became more serene, letting me know she wasn't in pain. My younger sister was expecting her first child. Their child would be adorable whether she looked like Jenna or Joshua. Even before my niece was born, I saw myself showering her with love and toys. I had already intended to swoon over her. My thoughts were noticed by Jenna, who grinned broadly and added, "Uncle, thanks in advance for everything."